There's two numbers that I'm going to ask you to remember this morning, and the first one is a rather big one. It's 1 million. When you first hear the number 1 million, what comes to mind? Money, right? You think when you hear the word or the number 1 million, you think about, hey, maybe that'd be my salary one day, or perhaps that's the average price of a home here in the Stanford area. I don't know. But 1 million, and the first lesson I learned as I began to work with this company called Toyota, and by the way, Toyota will remain a background example today, and I'm not going to talk about them in any specific way. But the first thing that came to my attention back in 1998 was the fact that they were implementing at that time over 750,000 ideas on an annual basis. Today the number is 1 million. 1 million ideas implemented annually. Now, those aren't just suggestions fired off to the big black box that ends up somewhere on an executive's desk. This isn't stuffing the suggestion box. An idea at Toyota was defined, as you will see later today, as the wrestling to the ground of a gap that is present between where you are and where you think you could be, and it's laid out very nicely in a thought pattern that leads to a plan of action. That is an idea, and those 1 million ideas are actually 1 million experiments. Not all of them become institutionalized, but they are 1 million experiments. And you talk about failure? Yes, some of them fail. But when the goal is to learn, there is really no failure. But the first thing that shocked me out of my shoes was the fact that most of those ideas were coming out of a factory environment. Not from the professionals. Not from the knowledge workers that had been trained in fancy ways to solve problems. And I was one of those people. I thought I knew a little bit about problem solving. I had a dozen years of pretty solid consulting background, working with as many different companies. And I got to Toyota and I started kicking around the factories and the warehouses. Lo and behold, the real creativity was coming from someone who comes in, punches a clock, and punches it out at the end of the day. I was quite humbled by the fact that I worked the line for a few days, and I really struggled to make a few not so good improvements. And the person who was shepherding me through the process made a dozen over the course of 3 shifts, doing the same operation. Now there's something magical to that. And so I had to begin to dig deeper, because my job at the time was to take what was coming out of the factory in terms of human creativity and port it over to the knowledge side of the business, the sales, the marketing, the legal, the human resources, all the folks that were supposed to be the creatives. It was an interesting project. But Toyota was struggling with creativity at the time, and they were looking out over the coming millennium and saying, you know, we're going to grow rapidly. We need a way to think about innovation that's more accessible than the way we're thinking about it in our knowledge operations and our service operations. And I tried to get to the bottom of all this, and you know what? It's a hidden process, and that's my perspective today. Too often we think about innovation in terms of innovations. Outcomes, products, services. Today we're going to talk about the human creative input and what the requirement is to think about innovation in a new way. And let me do a quick test for you. I would like you to raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a good problem solver. And don't be modest now. Now's not the time for it. All right? Raise your hand now if you consider yourself to be a good learner. Excellent. Now I would like the true innovators in the room to raise your hand. You see, that's a problem. Because I'm here to tell you that the iterative creative process behind learning, the kind of learning that I'm going to define this morning, and problem solving, which is the pursuit of a challenge or an opportunity, are one and the same. And if you remember nothing else, by the time I leave this morning, my message is that learning and innovation go hand in hand, and that you are an innovator. It's a matter of getting out of your own way so that you can see it. So I will ask the question again later on, and I certainly hope that the number of hands raised changes. Now, you heard the term elegant and elegant solutions.